Hey up everybody, welcome back to the Outdo Cycling YouTube channel, where today I am going to be talking about the VELOGAMES Volta Catalunya. So the pricing for a lot of these riders, as George has indicated in his tweet on the website, is that they're fairly relaxed, I guess, which is going to allow for a lot of really cool teams. The highest price rider is Simon Yates at 20, which is relatively low considering that he just finished second at Paris-Nice. But when you consider the number of stages that perhaps Simon Yates could contest, which is the two mountaintop finishes and maybe the stage in Barcelona, that's only 3 stages, so actually it might be a better idea to put on some lower point riders who will also contest the mountaintop finishes maybe instead of Simon Yates, which is why I've at the moment I don't have Simon Yates on my team, because I'm not quite sure if that's the correct strategy to go with. I think that Carapaz, after all, we saw him pulling out of Tirreno. That might not be a great, most safe shout to go with. I think safer would be Nairo and Valverde, especially Valverde, considering that he'll do better on perhaps stage 1 in comparison to the other GC guys, because it's a bit of a puncher finish. Zhao's an interesting one, but there's no TT in this race, which means that he might not be as good of a pick as some others, but I think he would be better than Jai Hindley and Richie Porte, for example, who are of the other 16 pointers. 14 pointers, there are some really good ones. I wouldn't be recommending Hugh Carthy, I just haven't seen enough of him this year. Chavez is an interesting one because he really came out on nowhere and did really good at this race last year, so he could do the same this year. Dumoulin I don't think suits this race too much, but I think that Jack Hagan, Mike Woods especially, are really good picks for this, especially Woods. I think that he's definitely the leader for Israel, so Woods would be a really good one for 14. The 12 pointers, I think there's quite a lot of them. Carlos Rodriguez would be one of my most favourite ones, maybe Guillaume Martin because there's no TT. Michael Matthews and Colbrelli are good picks for the first stage, but I'm not sure how many of the other stages suit them. Ben O'Connor could be an outside GC pick, as could Wout Poels, but other than that I'm not a big fan of the other 12 pointers, so those are the 12 pointers I'd be recommending to you. The 10 pointers, Higuita would be a good one because there's the puncher finish, and then he could also do a good job on GC. We saw him doing really well at the Volta Algarve earlier this year, which is a good example of that. He is the best 10 pointer in my eyes. You could pick Masnada or Milano as well, but I think that Milano isn't that great considering that there are good sprinters in the 8-point category like Bauhaus, Caden Groves and Ugo Hofstetter, who are likely the better picks in comparison to Milano because they're just as fast but they're cheaper. Other 8-pointers, there are some great ones. Juan Ayuso, Bajoli are also really good picks that you could go with. Nielsen Paulus maybe for GC, he is pretty good at kind of altitude finishes. Dylan Turns and Attila Volta would be some outside GC picks as well. Volta could be really good considering how good he looked at Strade Bianche. And then you get down to the 6-pointers and 4-pointers, and my word, there are so many for you to choose from. It's kind of ridiculous. I don't think you'll be able to put them all on your team. We're going to go down and we're going to see which ones we like the look of. First off, Santiago Buitrago, because he won the Saudi Tour, he seems to have kicked off his season really well, so hopefully he can keep that going. He would be a really good pick, especially for perhaps a top 20 on GC and maybe getting in a breakaway or two. I think that could be a really good pick. Anton Charmig we saw doing well at, I think it was the Tour of Oman, and I think that he could be a good one for kind of the KOM classification. UNOX would be looking to get some good exposure in this race, and I think that Charmig would be an integral part of that. Thomas de Gent, Mr. Volta Catalunya himself, is here in this race. He usually gets in some of the breakaways, and I think he's won a stage in most editions of this race apart from in 2020 when it was cancelled because of COVID. So Thomas de Gent could be a really good pick. David Decker, a sprinter for 6 points, could be pretty good, but he hasn't looked as good as the other ones that I mentioned in the 8-pointer. He's been a bit flat this year. Odd Christian Eiking. Other than that, you've got the winner of the Tour de l'Avenir, Tobias Harlan Johannesson. This would be one of my most strongly recommended 6-point picks. He could finish fairly high on GC, maybe 10th to 15th, considering just how good the GC battle is going to be here. But yeah, Johannesson, a really good one, a really good 6-pointer. Luis Angel Mate sometimes goes for the KOM classification, just a kind of an outside one there. But other than that, Quentin Pacher's just done good at the Milano Sanremo, so he would be a pretty good one, especially since Groupama just seemed like quite an open team, and a lot of their riders will get some good opportunities in this race. But other than that, you've got Luke Plapp, who was really good at the UAE Tour. It wouldn't surprise me if he's somewhat high up in GC, but he could be more of a domestique this year because the team does look strong, and with quite a lot of mountain domestiques, Plapp might be required to do some of the pulling on the flat instead. You also have Ilan van Wilder, who looked really good at the Tour de la Provence, and yeah, but without a TT, Van Wilder might not be that great of a pick, but he could definitely finish, top 20 on GC, so another great option for you there. And Harm van Hoeke kind of falls into the same category. Lotz Soudal, he's probably their best climber on that team. And then Carlos Verona looked good at the UAE Tour as well, so he could finish fairly high up on GC as well. Loads of great options in the 6-point category. The 4-point category, there are a couple of sprinters that I want to point out to you. The first one is Tom de Vrent. Sorry, I probably butchered that, but he finished fairly high up, I think a couple of top 10 finishes in the UAE Tour sprints, so definitely he could be a good option to finish inside the top 5 of a couple of the sprint stages for sure. You also have Francisco Galvan, who finished, I think it was 3rd place at the GP Marseillaise really early at the start of this year, so he is a sprinter for Equipo Kern Pharma. You also have Manuel Penalva, who is again another good sprinter, did good at the Volta Comunità Valenciana. I think he finished just behind Matteo Moschetti in a sprint, so another one to keep your eye out for there. And then you also have Ethan Vernon, who is going to be the sprinter for Quickstep Alpha Vinyl. Henry van den Abiel is another kind of semi-GC option for DSM, so definitely watch out for a lot of those riders. There are so many teams that you could create that I'm just not going to bother you with who I think I'm going to be putting on my team, because it's going to change so much from now to the point where the race starts tomorrow. So that is all I have to say. Put your teams or any ideas down in the comments down below, and yeah, all that's left to say is to keep safe out there, and I will speak to you in the next video. Salut!